Well, thanks again, Daniel. We come now to have a look at in the main, the mortal population who will come to this place and what they will see. We spent in our last session quite a bit of time talking about the immortals, hopefully ourselves, in this house. We're going to have a look now primarily at the mortals who will come to worship in this house of prayer for all nations. I want to start in Psalm 48. Now, this is where the words of our title come from. We've already made reference to it once in our study. I'm going to give you Rotherham's translation of Psalm 48. So if you're following it along, whatever translation you might have, you will see there are some differences. A melodious song is the superscription of this psalm for the sons of Korah. Sons of Korah, of course, involved in the worship of this place in ancient times, and there will be involvement in future. Great is Yahweh and worthy to be mightily praised in the city of our God, his holy mountain. Beautiful in elevation, the joy of all the land is Mount Zion, in the recesses of the north, the city of the great King. So there's the elevation of Mount Zion, becomes the seat of the throne of David, the city of the great King, our Lord Jesus Christ. God in her palaces, and the palaces is a reference to the temple, God in her palaces is to be known as a high tower. Just as we have heard, so have we seen, in the city of Yahweh of hosts, in the city of our God, God himself will establish her unto time's age abiding. We have thought, O God, upon thy loving kindness in the midst of thy temple. And that's exactly what people will do when they come to this place. They will spend time contemplating the greatness of the God that they have been called to serve. According to thy name, O God, so be thy praise unto the ends of the earth. With righteousness is thy right hand filled. Let Mount Zion rejoice. Let the daughters of Judah exult because of thy judgments. Go round Zion and compass her about. Reckon up her towers. We're going to do that in this study. We're going to reckon up her towers. Apply your mind to her rampart. Pass between her palaces, that ye may recount them to an after generation. For this God is our God, to time's age abiding and beyond. He himself will conduct us till death. What do you think that means? Well, it's obviously a reference to mortal worshippers, isn't it? Okay, it could be the psalmist of old who died. But this is about the future. This is about people who will come to this place. This is about people who are going to die during the millennium. So they come to learn very important lessons from this house. And you and I, at times, will be there to educate them and to guide them and to give judgment upon issues that they bring, as we shall see tomorrow, God willing. So just a reminder of the land after the earthquake. So here we are. We've seen, of course, the exaltation of Zion, the formation of the Arabah, this plain. You've got this slope, you've got the temple sitting on the lip of this plateau which runs up the central massif of the land. You have the water going back, some of it going in the Mediterranean, which is why you read about fish like the Great Sea. The Great Sea is the Mediterranean Sea. So it may be like North America, where salmon, who spend 3 or 4 years in the sea, having come from the rivers, go back to where they came from. It may well be that fish from the Mediterranean will end up being caught by fishermen at En-Gedi and in Eglaim, as we read in that reading in Ezekiel 47. So we've got this land, but I'm going to focus here in relation to the people who come to this land on this place, Yahweh Shammah. Okay, this is the dormitory city. This is the place where mortal worshippers will reside when they come to worship in this house. They might be there for weeks or months. We don't know. That's not specified. We're going to focus on what happens in Yahweh Shammah, amongst other things. So it's going to be really from the perspective of the mortals, this study, although we will come into it from time to time. So let's then go to the chapter that deals with Yahweh Shammah. It's Ezekiel chapter 48. The very last chapter of the prophecy of Ezekiel. Now the section that deals with Yahweh Shammah begins in Ezekiel 48 and verse 30. And these are the goings out of the city on the north side, 4,500 measures. And the gates of the city shall be after the names of the tribes of Israel, 3 gates northward. And then, of course, in verse 32, the east side, 4,000, 3 gates, and then the south, and then the west. And then you have verse 35. Okay, now verse 35 gives us the name of this place. Now let me just say, this is sometimes confused with the temple itself. I've often heard people say that Ezekiel 48 verse 35 is a reference to the temple. It's not a reference to the temple. It's a reference to the dormitory city that the worshippers who come to worship in the temple will reside in because they're mortal. They need a place to sleep. They need a place to eat. They need bathrooms, washrooms, okay? That's where they'll find this. And of course, obviously, in the house of prayer, there'll also be provision made for things that mortals require. But this is a totally different place to the temple itself. Now, the confusion comes from what you read in the translation of verse 35, because it says this. It was round about 18,000 measures, and the name of the city from that day shall be Yahweh is there. Now, it's a pretty poor translation. You may have a different translation to that, but that's a pretty poor translation. So what we're talking about is this city. It's a large city. It's nearly 11 miles square. Okay, so it's a pretty big place. And it is some 22 miles from the temple, which is up here. Okay, and the name Yahweh Shammah is given by Brother Sully. He says the meaning is Yahweh thither, or to Yahweh from this place. Literally, in the Hebrew, it means from thence unto Yahweh. Okay, so what it's saying is that when the mortal worshippers come to worship in the temple up here, this is where they abide while they are in the land. This is the place. It's like a dormitory city. And so they are housed and fed and cared for here in this place. And then they make the journey, whenever it's required, they make the journey 22 miles north to the house. And we don't know whether there's some kind of conveyance. We're not told that sort of information. But there probably will be some form of conveyance that will get them up there. They may have to walk it. Well, it would take you quite a while to walk 22 miles, wouldn't it, at 4 miles an hour? So, yeah, we don't know. But that's where they will be residing for the time that they are in the land. And of course, this place has to be serviced, doesn't it? This is why it has fields to the east and to the west. And those fields will be tended by the Levites, and also we know that the children of Israel are going to have some involvement in this. So let's have a look at some of that data. I want you to come to Ezekiel 48, and we're going to read from verse 15. Because this is where this city begins to be described. Verse 15. And the 5,000 that are left in the breadth over against the 25,000 shall be a profane place for the city, for dwelling and for suburbs. And the word suburbs means open country. That's where flocks are kept for pasture. And the city shall be in the midst thereof. So the actual place where there are buildings to house people is in the midst thereof. So what you're looking at is this picture here. You have, there's Yahweh Shammah, something like 10 miles square, and either side you've got fields where cattle are kept and crops are grown, etc. But do you see these arrows coming from all the tribes of Israel? Well, we're told this. Let's just read on. Come down to verse 18. And the residue in length over against the oblation of the holy portion shall be 10,000 eastward and 10,000 westward, and it shall be over against the oblation of the holy portion. And in the increase thereof shall be for food unto them that serve the city. Isn't that interesting? So who are these that serve the city? And they that serve the city, verse 19, shall serve it out of all the tribes of Israel. So what will happen is that when the mortals come here to stay, they have to have food. That food will be partly grown here. The food will be either in the form of grain or meat, whatever. And the tribes of Israel, with 7 of them to the north and 5 to the south, will come and labour in these fields and also bring the necessary requirements for the mortal worshippers. See? And they will bring them into this place, and they will use the tradesman's entrance to Yahweh Shema. You know, it's obvious, isn't it? You go to a Walmart, what have you got? You've got a front entrance for the people who are going to come and spend money there. What have you got at the back? You've got the tradesman's entrance where they bring stuff in that the people who come in the front door are going to buy. Okay? That's how it works, isn't it? And that's how this place will work as well. Because this is how it looks. It has 12 gates, and that's what we read at the end of Ezekiel 48. So it's got 3 gates from the south. When people come to this place, they will come in from the south. That's how they will access Yahweh Shema. They'll find a lodging in here. When it comes time to go to worship, they'll go through one of the 3 northern gates. When they come back, they'll come through one of the 3 northern gates. But these gates, the 3 on the west and the 3 on the east, are for the use of the Levites and for the children of Israel, the mortal Israelites, who will bring stuff into this place to feed and care for the mortal worshippers who come from Gentile lands. That's how it will work. So there are the 12 gates, and of course we pointed out in previous studies, I think, that the gates to the north and the gates to the south are all sons of Leah. And it's because of her faithfulness under severe trial and tribulation for decades. She's going to have that in the kingdom age for 1,000 years, that all worshippers who come to the temple will access by the gates of her sons from the south, go to the temple through her gates, come back through her gates. There will be a reward for the faithfulness of Leah. So this is how it will happen, visiting the house of prayer. Now there is a very important law of the house. We're going to talk about this again tomorrow morning when we talk about sacrifice. Extremely important law of the house. It's in Ezekiel 46 verse 9. It's actually a parenthesis. It goes on to say this: He that entereth in by the way of the north gate, and the north gate is where sacrifice is made, to worship, shall go out by the way of the south gate. And he that entereth by the way of the south gate shall go forth by the way of the north gate. He shall not return by the way of the gate whereby he came in, but shall go forth over against it, which means that having walked quite a distance to get there, you're going to have to walk another mile to get out of this building. So you can't just sort of poke your nose in the north and say, well, it looks nice, and then go out. You've actually got to go right across. You've got to walk a mile to get out the other side. Now, this is very important in relation to sacrifices, we will see tomorrow. So this is just to illustrate the way that people will access this house. So they come to make sacrifice. Now, if you're going to make sacrifice, you can only make sacrifice in this house on the north side. And we'll point out the reason for that tomorrow. So when they've made their sacrifice, done whatever else they have to do, they come back to Yahweh Shema. If they've made sacrifice previously, they don't need to do that again. They can come through the south gate, but they've got to go through the north gate. Now you can't come around here because these are waters of swimming, as we've just read in Ezekiel 47. And of course these gates are shut, so this is out of bounds for mortals. Totally out of bounds. So they've actually got to go around here. And of course there's a dump out there. You can't have mortals without rubbish or trash, can you? That's just part of life. So there'll be a dump out there, some distance from the temple, because you don't want the odours of the dump to be insinuating themselves into the house of prayer. So they'll have to go past this dump to go back to Yahweh Shema. Get a bit of a feel for access. Well, there are others who will access from another direction. We read in Ezekiel 39, I'll pass by the mausoleum for Gog. And there will be a mausoleum for Gog up here. So they'll come past that, they'll come in, they'll do their sacrifice, they'll come out the south, they've got to go back this way. So it's quite a journey, isn't it? What do you reckon that means? Walk about Zion. Go round about her, said Psalm 48. Remember? Tell the towers thereof. Yeah, you're going to pass quite a few. You're going to walk around Zion. You can't just sort of poke your nose in and walk away. You have to walk around it. Why? Well, so that you can study it and remember it and go back and tell the people at home what you saw. Just like Ezekiel walked around the house and wrote it down and told it to the people of Israel and told it to you and me. What for? So that people can build a vision. The people that are at home, given all this detail, can build a vision. All right? And when they get there, oh, I know, that's exactly what I saw in my vision. What's happening here? I know this. See? And that will shape the way they live their lives today. That's the point of it. Where there's no vision, the people perish. They're made naked. You get a vision, then you'll aim to be there. That's what it's all about. Great importance. I want to come and have a look now at the corner towers that are going to be very much in that vision. Come to Ezekiel 46, the last little passage that we read a little while ago. Ezekiel 46. We'll pick this up from verse 19, which begins a description of the corner towers. Verse 19 says, "And he brought me through the entry, which was at the side of the gate, into the holy chambers of the priests, which looked toward the north." So this is the side of sacrifice. "And behold, there was a place on the two sides westward," or as it is rendered by the RV, the hinder part. The RSV has at the extreme western end of them. So Ezekiel's looking west, east is to the front. So, here we've got it. This is the northern outer court, so this is where they enter. Okay, sacrifices made here. On the other side of the pavement, so it's 100 cubits from the wall here to the wall here, 100 cubits. On the other side of this pavement, these cellae are called the holy chambers of the priests. Now the priests referred to here are not immortal priests. This is the mortal priests. Okay, this is where they operate from. So this is where Ezekiel, and he's looking at the extreme western end of them. He's looking at this. So what's he going to see? He's going to see towers. So that's why in verse 20 he's going to describe these towers. And he said unto me, "This is the place where the priests, mortal priests, shall boil the trespass offering and the sin offering, where they shall bake the meat offering, that they bear them not out into the outer court to sanctify the people. Then he brought me forth into the outer court and caused me to pass by the four corners of the court." So he's guided, in fact, to each corner of the outer court. And he discovers four identical courts at each corner of this house. So this is where, in these places, the priests, the mortal Levites, will prepare the trespass offering, the sin offering, etc. Okay? And these, of course, under the law of Moses, were consumed only by the priests. We know that from Leviticus chapter 6. We're going to see people are going to be involved in meals and feasts that are held. Then it says in verse 21, "He caused me to pass by the four corners," guided to each of the four corners of this massive 1 mile square building. And he finds four identical courts there. So let's read on in verse 22. "In the four corners of the court there were courts joined of 40. Now, most of your Bibles have cubits. True? Not true. That's what you got, but it's not true. It should be reeds. Alright? Now, the difference between a cubit and a reed is quite enormous, isn't it? A cubit is what? 2 feet? A reed is 6 cubits? 12 feet. So quite a big difference. It actually should read reeds. So they were, he says, joined of 40 reeds long and 30 broad. These four corners were of one measure. So what does this word joined imply? Well, it's the Hebrew word katrol, and it means smoking or steaming with fragrance. Young's literal has perfume. In other words, there's there's steam and smoke coming out of these four corners. Why would that be the case? Well, we were told. See what it says in verse 20? This is the place where they bake the meal offering. This is where they boil the trespass offering. When was the last time you boiled something? Did you get vapour? If you're using a fire, do you get smoke? Well, of course you do. Does it smell okay? If it's something that's cooking that's pleasant? Yeah. So it's like a perfume, isn't it? So when Ezekiel sees these corner towers, the one thing he notices is that there's steam and smoke coming out, and it smells pretty good. There's a perfume there. Why? Well, because they're actually preparing the meals that will be partaken of in this place by mortal worshippers. You know how many people can actually sit down and eat a meal here each day? 500,000. 500,000 people can sit down on the north, west and south of this building in the halls or the cellar on north, west and south. It's a lot of people, isn't it? It's a lot of cooking. That's why you have to have 4 of them going. Right? 4 of these going. Because there's going to be a lot of cooking done in this place every day. You're going to have a lot of Levites running around. You know what it's like preparing meals? Yeah. That's a lot of work. There's a lot of Levites running around doing all of that kind of work. And they'll burn the incense and the fat. As that word comes from the word katar, to raise an odour by burning. Burn incense and the fat. That's going to happen on the altar, on the heights of Mount Zion. But the other parts of the offering that are going to be used for food are prepared in these 4 corner towers. Now we were told they're 40 cubits. You see cubits is in italics? Yep. That's because it should read reeds. It actually refers to the height of these corner towers. And the height is 240 cubits, or 480 feet. So it's 480 feet high, the corner towers. Quite tall buildings, as you can understand. But then you read this in verse 22, it says, 30 broad. Only one measurement is given because the chord is actually square. 30 reeds is 180 cubits. So this is a building where you have 4 corner towers, and each of those towers is square. They look like, as you're going to see in a minute, like that. Because verse 23 says, and there was a row of building round about them 4, and it was made with boiling places under the rows round about. So here you've got perfectly square corner towers. And they, of course, sit right on the end. East, west, on the southern side of the building, east and west. 4 of these boiling places under the rows round about. And obviously the boiling's done at the lower levels, because it says under the rows round about. And the rows referred to are the cellar of the walls of this house. And then verse 24 says, then said he unto me, these are the places of them that boil, where the ministers of the house, namely Levites, shall boil the sacrifice of the people. So there we have the description of what happens in these 4 corner towers. Now 480 feet is quite high. I was born in a city called Adelaide. It was designed by a gentleman called Colonel Light in 1836. And it's 1 mile square. Alright? So you have North Terrace and East Terrace, South Terrace and West Terrace, 1 mile square. Around that you have parkland. And there's a building in Adelaide that's 480 feet high. So when you stand up on Mount Lofty and look down at Adelaide, you can see the 1 mile square and a building that's 480 feet high. So you can actually get a picture of what this temple is going to look like. I want to move on then now to another very important subject. Now, I know a little bit of detail about, the architecture is not all that easy. But this is easy. Right? This is a very important part of what we read in Ezekiel 47. because there's water everywhere in this land. Why? Because it comes out from under the altar on Mount Zion. And we read about that in Ezekiel 47. So the passage we want to have a look at is verses 1 to 12. Verses 1 to 5 is about the cleansing waters of Zion, and verses 6 to 12 is about how they heal, the healing waters of Zion. And we know from places like Psalm 46 and verse 4, there is a river, the streams whereof, notice it says streams, so that at least two, there's a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. Okay, now we want to see what that means exactly. So let's come and have a look at verse 1 of Ezekiel 47. Afterward he brought me again unto the door of the house, and behold, waters issued out from under the threshold of the house eastward. It's interesting, isn't it? For the forefront of the house stood toward the east, and the waters came down from the right side of the house at the south side of the altar. So it's a very detailed description. And what it means, of course, is that as we look at this, there's the east of the house, okay, and he says that waters came out from under the threshold of the house eastward, but they came firstly down the side of Mount Zion, from under the altar. And they come down what he calls the right side of the house. So if you're facing east, what's the right side? The south side, okay? So the waters come from under the altar, they run down the south side, they go underground, and they come out under the threshold of the gates on the south and on the north. So there is a river, remember that? There is a river that makes glad the house of God, the most holy place, yes, and its streams run off to the east. And they're going to have an amazing healing effect on this land. That's the subject we've got in front of us. So we know from this that Ezekiel's actually standing here. This is what he's observing. He's standing down here on this corner, near this corner tower. You've just seen these towers, remember? And he's looking eastward. He sees this water running off. But then we come to another place where Ezekiel's going to stand. So he looks up, he sees the water coming down from the right side, or from the south of the altar, and he sees it coming out under the gates. But come to verse 2. In verse 2 we read this. Then brought he me out of the way of the gate northward, and led me about the way without unto the outer gate, by the way that looketh eastward, and behold, there ran out waters on the right side. So where's he now? Well, he's up here. He's on the north side. And what he's done is he's come out of one of these gates. And when you come out of a gate, what's your right side? If you're coming out and you're heading north, what's your right side? To the east. See? So his line of view is down here. He's looking down at this river. He saw one down here, and now he sees this one. Okay? Looks towards the east, and behold, there ran out waters on the right side. You got a picture? Right. Well, what are they for? What's this designed to do? Is this where you get a bottle of water? Or is there something more important than that? Well, there is something more important. That's his line of sight down there. So let's come to verse 3. And when the man that had the line in his hand, read Christ, who's the builder of the house, Ezekiel 40 and verse 3. So when the man that had the line in his hand went forth eastward, so where's he going from? Well, he's with Ezekiel. He takes Ezekiel out here. They look to the east. That's their line of sight. And he watches Christ measure from this point. He says, he went forth eastward. He measured 1,000 cubits, and he brought me through the waters, and the waters were to the ankles. So he sees him measuring, and he follows him. Okay? And they go 1,000 cubits. Now, how long was this walk? 3,000 cubits. So he goes a third of the way, and the water is up to the ankles. So what would they be for, do you think? Up to the ankles. Well, washing your feet. Yeah. It's like John 13 verse 10. If you've been walking in the way, you're going to get dirty feet, aren't you? You know, that's what happens if you get dirty feet. You have to wash your feet. That's your walk, washing your walk. So those who have been baptised, when they come to this place, they'll go through the water to the ankles, wash their feet. Where next? Look at verse 4. Again, he measured 1,000, and he brought me through the waters, and the waters were to the knees. So another 1,000. He goes along here, and he's following Christ, the builder of the house, okay, and he finds out that this is up to the knees. Well, now, why would you want water up to the knees? Well, because this is for more thorough washing. I wonder who might be using that water. Well, I think Levites. Levites who kill the sacrifices, who are covered in blood, who are doing all the cooking in the towers. They might need to wash every now and then, eh? So this is where they'll wash, in water to the knees. But then we read on in verse 4, it says, again he measured 1,000 and brought me through, and the waters were to the loins. To the loins? That's up here. It's like up to your waist level, almost to your waist level. So what's that for? Well, this is what happens. He's taken right down here. And what we have here, he arrives at the eastern end of this building, and the water here is up to the loins. That's water you can baptise people in. All right? You walk them into the water, and you can baptise them in water of that depth. So those who need to be baptised, are ready for baptism, that's where that's done. But what happens when you go beyond that? Look at verse 5. Afterward he measured 1,000, and it was a river that I could not pass over, for the waters were risen, waters to swim in, a river that could not be passed over. Yep, so that beyond this point, you can't pass this river without swimming. That, of course, means that access to the eastern side of the house is very difficult. But I want you to notice verse 6. And he said unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen this? Well, of course he'd seen it. He's just followed Christ through this water. Obviously he's seen it. So what does it mean? What do you think that means? It means this, brothers and sisters. Do you get it? Ezekiel, do you get it? That's the question he's being asked. So what do you think water represents in the scheme of things? The washing of the water by the word, says the apostle in Ephesians chapter 5. That's critical for the development of the bride of Christ. The washing of the water by the word. Without water, you ain't going nowhere. That's what he's saying here. You're not going to be there unless the water of the word has done its job in your life. That's his message, brothers and sisters. And he's asked the question, you get it? How important is the word of God in our lives? And of course, water produces life, doesn't it? New life, growth, development. That's why you read in verse 7 of Ezekiel 47. Now when I had returned, behold, at the bank of the river were very many trees on the one side and on the other. So what's this water doing? It's giving life. Look at verse 8. Then he said unto me, these waters issue out toward the east country, and they go down into the desert, or to the Arabah, as the word is. Well, of course, this is what is over the lip, isn't it? The plateau. It's the Arabah. So these rivers go down over the lip of the plateau, and they run off into what's now a living sea. They make it a living sea. It's no longer a dead sea. It's teeming with life. Where's this life coming from? From under the altar of sacrifice on the top of Mount Zion. And every sacrifice laid on that altar points to the Lord Jesus Christ, as we will see tomorrow, God willing. You don't get life without that sacrifice. So this is the picture. The healing waters of Zion. They issue out toward the east. So they come out from under the gates on the north and the south, and they run down here to the east. They go down to the Arabah. See, this is the Arabah, the plain that is formed from Geba to Rimmon. They run down here, and they come into this place. And it shall come to pass that everything that liveth, which moveth whithersoever the rivers shall come, shall live, and there shall be a very great multitude of fish, because these waters come thither, for they shall be healed, and everything shall live whither the river cometh. Yahweh Shema is just down here, it's not too far away from this living sea. But there's something interesting at the base of this living sea. Something very interesting, as we're going to see. Because when you come to verse 11 of Ezekiel 47, it says this: "But the miry places thereof and the marshes thereof shall not be healed." Yeah, most of this sea is healed, but not this area down here, right at the base of the Dead Sea today. You know, they're mining there today, right down at the southern end of the Dead Sea, because there's no longer water there. Okay, well, it's going to stay much like it is today. Why? It says the miry places and the marshes shall not be healed; they shall be given to salt. Why salt? Well, have a look at Ezekiel 43 and verse 24. Ezekiel 43 verse 24. This is about Ezekiel making sacrifice in the kingdom age as our representative. That's what he does here. He represents you and me, because we will make sacrifice in the kingdom age. Look at verse 24. "And thou, Ezekiel, shall offer them before Yahweh. And the priests," meaning the mortal Levitical priests, "shall cast salt upon them, and they shall offer them up for a burnt offering unto Yahweh. As it was under the law of Moses, no sacrifice made without salt." Why salt? Because it preserves from corruption. It speaks of sound, wholesome principle. And so God is making provision for the salt of the sacrifices for 1,000 years. So guess what section of the Holy Oblation the marshes are in? The portion of the Levites. Because they're the ones who go down with their shovels and gather the salt into bags and bring it up to the house, so that when they bring the sacrifices from the north gate into the inner circular sanctuary and hand them to the immortal priest to go up to the altar, there'll be salt with those sacrifices. Marvellous, isn't it? How God has made provision for all of these things. And then we read in Ezekiel 47 verse 12 about the abundance of trees and of fruit. Why? Why is there such an abundance? Because their waters, they issued out of the sanctuary. Water coming from under the altar of the sanctuary. That's why there's abundance. How important then is the Word of God in the scheme of things? And we know, of course, that trees are a symbol in the Word of God for the saints in the kingdom. I'm going to take you to these passages. They're so straightforward. Psalm 1 verse 3. The righteous likened to a tree by the living waters. Psalm 92 verse 12. The righteous are like a palm tree, growing upright. Jeremiah 17. Trees of righteousness, verses 7 and 8. And Revelation 22 verse 2. We've got a wood of life. References that tell us that the saints are symbolised in the Word of God by trees. Now, a very interesting feature of the house. We're looking at this from a mortal perspective. I want to show you something about this house. Now, this is an artist's impression of the cloud that will cover Mount Zion. Now, of course, the artist couldn't put it out to where it actually will belong. It's going to come out to the inner gates of the circular sanctuary. I mean, if you did that, you wouldn't be able to see anything, would you? So the artist has just given us a bit of a cloud. I want to show you what the actual situation will be in the kingdom age. You know, we look at this picture of the temple, and that's great. Mortals are not going to see some of that, We'll show you. Worshippers approach the sanctuary. We read in Isaiah 66 verse 23, "Come to pass from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me." And here they come to the inner circular sanctuary. So they've done their sacrifice. They're coming across the separate place. They're coming to this place. They go up the steps. They don't go inside. They go to the top of the steps. We're going to see the reason for that in our exhortation tomorrow, God willing. But what they do see from here is a cloud. And that cloud is sitting over the inner gates of this circular sanctuary. All right, now let's examine this. I want you to come to Isaiah chapter 4. Isaiah 4. Now here's our inner circular building. You can see by the curvature, and we've been here before, haven't we? So this is the floor plan of the temple, the inner sanctuary, showing the inner posts where the most holy begins. There's where the most holy begins. So we're going in here to Mount Zion, okay? Now, this is where the cloud is going to sit above this building, the rim of the cloud. We're going to find this when we come to Isaiah 4 verse 5. So let's read Isaiah 4 verse 5. And Yahweh will create upon every dwelling place of Mount Zion and upon her assemblies a cloud and smoke by day and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For upon all the glory shall be a defence, and there shall be a tabernacle, the word succoth, a succoth for a shadow in the daytime from the heat, and for a place of refuge, and for a covert from storm and from rain. Now it's that last little bit of verse 5 that we want to examine. This is Rotherham's translation. Yahweh will create over all the home of Mount Zion, and over her assembly a cloud by day and smoke, and a shining of a fire flame by night. This is the phrase we want. For over all the glory shall be a canopy. That's what this is about. So the cloud is like a canopy. It's like a tent. And that's in fact, in Isaiah 16 verse 5, what the temple's described as. It's an ohel, a round tent. So what's the tent? Well, you can see by the picture. You see, this is the inner circular sanctuary. There's our 480 feet corner towers. There's your 120 feet high walls. But this little part here, see this? That is your inner circular sanctuary. See where the cloud comes down? Cloud comes down to the inner gates, the inner doorways of this building. And it covers the mountain. So the direct glory that will be manifested here in the most holy will not be seen by mortals. They'll see glow in the cloud when sacrifices are accepted, but they're not going to see the mountain, so to speak. They'll see the mountain only as a cloud. It will cover that mountain, hide it from their view. You reckon this is possible? What do you reckon? Well, this is Mount Erebus in the Antarctic. It's like that all the time. It's got a cloud sitting over the top of it. It'll be what it's like in the Kingdom Age, sitting over Mount Zion, prevent direct access to mortals. Could mortals see inside the most holy of the tabernacle or the temple? No. And they're not going to see that in the Kingdom Age. Guess who will see it? The immortal priests who operate within the most holy. They're going to see it. And they're going to be exposed to that glory. So that's the very clear picture of Isaiah chapter 4, verses 5 and 6. So I want to conclude this study by taking you on a journey in the day, a day in the life of a mortal worshipper. So let's just follow this. We're going to do it in two ways. We're going to set it out in dot point. We're going to set it out in map form, so you know where they're going. So let's just go through the detail. A mortal worshipper arrives at the house of prayer via the western side, passing by the dump, crosses the river on the north side, whether it be ankle or waist deep, whatever is required, met by a Levite and makes a sacrifice at the slaying blocks at the north gate. Accompanies the Levite into the house and watches the sacrifice prepared and distributed. Spends some time mingling with others on the outer court pavement, absorbing the experience. Moves inwards through one of the gates of the inner court to the separate place and stands astonished at the grandeur of the sanctuary before him. And he's met by a Levite and ascends the steps of the inner temple, that's the circular one, to stand before one of the saints sitting to judge and counsel mortals. We'll talk about that tomorrow. He returns to the separate place and moves to the eastern court to observe the prince worshipping, if it happens to be a Sabbath or a new moon. He walks about Zion, passing through the southern court, outer celle, to the western upper celle, because he's looking for a place to sit down. And he shares a fellowship meal with many others. Fellowship meal prepared by the Levites in the corner towers. Returns to the inner court to pray and listen to the saints in the chambers of the singers. an experience he will never forget, and stands awestruck as today's sacrifices are accepted at 3 p.m. We're on a lap, 3 p.m., the hour that Christ died. Okay? Between the evenings. Now, of course, we'll talk about the fact that some days it won't happen at 3 p.m. because there's some aeons in the house who have to be eradicated first before the sacrifices can be accepted. We'll talk about that later on. But let's just say this is one of those days where at 3 p.m. there's no wood on the altar. Nobody carries any wood up there. No need wood. Because every sacrifice accepted in this house will be accepted by fire from heaven, like it was in the days of Solomon and in the days when the tabernacle was erected. Remember that? Yahweh accepted those sacrifices by fire from heaven. So it will happen again. So here's the itinerary in a map form. So follow the arrows. This is a day in the life of a mortal worshipper. He arrives at the river on the north side and crosses and makes sacrifice on the north side, at the north gate. He enters the gate and passes through the outer court to the inner court and judgment. So he comes up the steps of this house and he finds a saint sitting there, and all of us are going to occupy these thrones at one point, sitting on a throne, judging, giving advice and counsel. Okay? He moves to witness the prince worship at the post of the east gate over here, which we considered in an earlier study. He then walks about Zion, he's going round about her, and he finds a place to sit down to dine in one of the cellars. Here on the western side, he can go south, he can go north. He moves to the inner court to hear the saints singing in the chambers of the singers. These are the chambers of the singers. And then, of course, reluctantly moves to the outer court and leaves by the south gate because he came in by the north. Go back to Yahweh Shema. So Psalm 48 will be fulfilled. Walk about Zion and go round about her. Tell the towers thereof. Mark ye well her bulwarks. Consider her palaces, that ye may tell it to the generation following. That's what that means. What an experience that will be. What stories he's going to have to tell when he gets home. Yeah, wonderful things. So that other people can have a vision, and that they will then look towards the day when they can be released from their duties to go up to this house and to worship. Something they'll only do very occasionally in their lives. So that's our studies for today. And tomorrow, God willing, we're going to have a look at sacrifice in our study in the morning. We're going to have a look at the thrones of the house of David in our exhortation. We're going to see our role as kings, brothers and sisters. In the first study tomorrow, we'll see our role as priests. It's going to be a consideration that will take us there, that we might order our lives accordingly today.